Receba, caralho! Receba, que o cara é da Luva de Pedreiro, o melhor do mundo. Obrigado, meu Deus!
Perceive this fact. The best in the world is no longer Luva de Pedreiro. After a nearly miraculous global impact, the 22-year-old influencer went from the city of Quijing in Brazil to the world. But today he is just a shadow of what he once represented. Now understand how Oran de Santana brought down his own empire and hung up his bricklayer's gloves. Oran de Santana Alves, 22 years old, was born in a small village in Bahia. In his hometown of Quijing, there were barely 30,000 inhabitants. Since childhood, the boy who would later become a bricklayer grew up in precarious conditions and was raised with great humility by his parents. His contact with soccer began with cloth balls made by his mother or even with coconuts that fell in his backyard. As he matured, life was neither fair nor easy. Oran had to stop studying in the 8th grade to start helping his father in the fields. And that's how the young boy lived until 2021. The boy who spent day and night working in the fields began recording casual videos. However, for the first time, he realized that the world was not just his small village, because soon his impact was explosive. His first video, posted on TikTok in March 2021, had 30 million views overnight. Even with this good news, he still tried to combine video production for the internet with fieldwork to help support his family. But when he realized that his videos went viral across Brazil and the world, even reaching major clubs like Barcelona and Bayern Munich, he finally understood the reality. His place was another one. It was on the internet with a smartphone and a soccer ball in hand. After all, that's all he needed to go viral. From there, his rise was astronomical, something never seen before in the history of the internet and social networks. Featured in national and international press, participation in various television programs, meetings with sports idols who echoed his catchphrase. And with all this came financial returns, money flowing into his account, an amount that a boy who hadn't even completed his studies probably never thought could even exist. So it became clear that he and his equally simple family and friends could not manage the rise of a digital empire without assistance. This way, a race for gold began, that is, who would become the manager of the newest social media star. In the competition, the winner was Alan Jesus, who took over the management of the Luva de Pedreiro's brand. However, what seemed like the beginning of an unprecedented success story was just the start of a decline masking itself as success. In March 2022, Luva de Pedreiro divided the audience. Some spoke about how rare it was for someone like him to explode. Others commented positively on how good it was for the simple boy to change his family's life. But there was a more rational and concerned part about the boy. These were the ones who warned. Oran urgently needed a manager. Without the correct management, the easy-coming assets would disappear even more easily. Finally, Alan Jesus took over the business. Luva de Pedreiro was the face of the brand. However, despite obtaining the position, the manager was treated throughout his tenure as the fox taking advantage of the golden goose. This was because he aggressively linked Oran's image to his own as a businessman. Constantly, Alan appeared behind the scenes of recordings, and mainly in mentions of each story posted on the Luva's profile. But despite being greedy, this strategy is neither criminal nor harmful to the artist's image. So things continued. Initially everything sounded good. Early in April, Luva was already in his first advertising ever, becoming the face for Amazon Prime Video. Next, his first business appeared, a clothing store inspired by his journey. From April to June, Luva de Pedreiro experienced a flood of advertising. Commercials promoting the World Cup aired on various networks like HBO Max. Partnerships with sports leagues like the UFC, where he was the first to collaborate with former lightweight champion Charles do Bronx. But what seemed promising began to crumble. In June 2022, Luva de Pedreiro appeared on his social media claiming discouragement and stress, with demands to the point of deactivating his own social networks, which were his livelihood. However, after a few days, he returned as if nothing had happened. However, with no mention of Alan Jesus, which was enough for theories that Luva was dissatisfied with his manager to gain even more strength. Hours later, the ASJ consulting agency claimed to have no knowledge of any contractual termination, but that all of that could constitute a breach of contract, and the one who was treated as a true defendant in Luva de Pedreiro's drama, Alan Jesus, appeared and claimed to have a contract with the influencer until 2026. But that's not what the rumors said. The collapse indeed began when internet columns said something absurd. Luva de Pedreiro would have only 7,500 Brazilian reais in his bank account, while on the other side, the manager confirmed that Iran would have 2 million to be received. With the disagreement between the parties, justice had to be called upon. The repercussion was so great that the judge in the case prohibited the mainstream media from airing information about the situation. As the process continued, the verdict was given. Alan Jesus and Luva de Pedreiro severed any contractual ties. But the end of the partnership had its consequences. The stipulated agreement was that from that month, Luva de Pedreiro should pass on 30% of his monthly earnings to Alan Jesus until he reached the modest amount of 5,200,000 Brazilian reais, approximately $1 million US. On social media, the former manager was seen as Judas, who betrayed and exploited the innocent boy who trusted in his work. Threats of all kinds piled up on Alan and his family's social media. He had become the big villain of the story. But life is not a simple TV series where we have a protagonist hero versus a wicked villain. Things are not black and white like that. So began the administration of Falcao, which seemed promising and was considered much better than his predecessor. But little did we know what the future held. The arrival of Falcao marked what seemed like the golden era of Luva de Pedreiro, a management that exuded transparency with the public and with Iran, who was a fragile person both psychologically and intellectually. A completely unprepared boy conquered the world. So, above all, he needed moral, ethical, and sentimental support. Still in 2022, the fruits of Luva's effort began to flourish. His over 20 million followers on his social media gave him nominations at events like CCXP, MTV, and the People's Choice Awards. The 30% judicially owed to Alan Jesus began to be deposited as if it were nothing. In a contract with McDonald's, he received over 1,100,000 Brazilian reais. With Adidas, his contract amounts to 200,000 Brazilian reais. With the game Free Fire, the value reaches 350,000 Brazilian reais. Apart from what Alan Jesus also owed him, after all, he received 237,000 Brazilian reais for contracts with Pepsi and Amazon, which were passed on to the influencer. So, in the eyes of the public, Falcao became a hero who saved the innocent boy from his abusive contract. Everything seemed fine until the first pillar of the Luva de Pedreiro began to crumble. In September 2022, he decided to leave social media. His team said they understood and supported the influencer's decision to delete all his videos from social media. However, the drama didn't last long. The same Luva de Pedreiro that claimed to desire a normal life, whether due to pressure or his own will, returned to his social media. His comeback seemed like a marketing move, but it was accepted, and the influencer was welcomed with open arms by his audience. However, without time for rest, the turn to 2023 brought a new crisis in the Luva de Pedreiro's brand management and exposed the other side of the coin. Lately, a question has been raised. Is Falcao really a professional agent? After his intervention in the case of Iran against Alan Jesus, the former futsal athlete is facing various criticisms, mainly questioning his methodologies for managing the marketing of the Luva de Pedreiro. And the reason for this is quite simple. Lately, what we see most are the poor advertising decisions on the young man's social media, which is the true showcase of his brand. The young influencer and Falcao seem to have forgotten that the audience they largely serve is children and teenagers, involving those aged 12 to 18. Therefore, it is necessary to have at least a filter on what should or should not be disclosed. However, his team seems not to have paid attention to this. Or worse, they noticed but couldn't care less. What is most surprising about the content is a controversial and bold subject: sports betting. These days, it's hard to go a whole day without seeing an advertisement for some betting house. They sponsor football teams, podcasts, and especially influencers. They start by presenting themselves as sports betting, but when we enter the sites, we see that what really dominates is online casino games. In these games, quick results are promised. The most brazen even talk about extra income, as if it were the miraculous solution to make your money grow. And we know very well that it's not like that. If you follow the channel, you know very well that to make extra income, it is necessary to invest in a good business, not in bets. If you want to know how you can start your legitimate technology business, investing little, stay tuned until the end of this video. But continuing, the reason for the growth of betting houses is quite simple. This is a profitable business for sports platforms that profit even more when the biggest digital phenomenon of the decade sells a false dream to the public. It was precisely for this profit that Falcao began to approach Iran. That's right, the former futsal player did not approach Luva with pure intentions of helping the dreamy boy go further. And that's what I'm going to show you now. In June, Luva de Pedreiro began to promote LuvaBet, its own betting and casino website, developed in partnership with Brazilian singer MC Daniel and F12.bet, Falcao's own betting platform. On this site, in addition to various casinos and betting options, there's even a game about the influencer, Luva, the best in the world. In the game, you bet on your own performance in penalty kick simulators, a replica of Iran's main content on the internet. However, this way of promoting the game is completely unhealthy for a large portion of young people who make up its audience. The promotion of easy gains in the thousands of Brazilian reais encourages and influences people of all age groups. But it becomes an even more malicious and criminal strategy when targeted at young people who may not be as savvy. In their minds, a great idol they look up to for success is endorsing something, so they trust that it will work. In this way, hundreds are deceived by the influencer they once trusted. They lose money, accumulate absurd debts, and sink deeper into the addiction of gambling. Similarly, reports about Luva's platform accumulate on the internet from common people to celebrities. The message is the same. LuvaBet is a scam. As if the fraud accusations weren't enough, Iran strives to further tarnish his image with arrogant and haughty remarks, showing that perhaps the cheerful and humble boy who won the support of so many no longer exists. Little by little, this distances the Luva de Pedreiro from the type of content that brought him to the top. That sincere, funny content that created a connection with his audience. Thus, Iran de Santana Alves moves towards his sad decline. So I'm here to ask you, do you think Alan Jesus deserved to be condemned as the big villain? Do you believe that Luva de Pedreiro can still redeem himself and clean up his image? Share your opinion here in the comments. Stories like these show us the importance of seeing both sides of the coin, investigating the facts, and drawing our own conclusions. It was with this intention that I created the channel. And that's why I'm very happy with every like and every comment. Now, to find out what the Great Resignation movement is, which is causing many people to reconsider their professional lifestyles and resulting in a wave of mass resignations, check out this video that is popping up on the screen to click. A hug, and as promised earlier. Do you know which business model offers high profit margins, immense scalability, and requires low initial investment? The startup market specializing in software development is the optimal choice to bring together all these advantages. However, the only place where you will truly find a highly scalable service that demands low investment is with Roadmap. Roadmap has global experience providing consulting and developing apps for startups in the United States, Europe, and Latin America, making it by far the best option for new entrepreneurs. If you want to venture into the premier market, contact Roadmap right away through the website www.roadmap.co/home or via email at contact@roadmap.co.